If someone spits venom at you, must you open your mouth just to swallow it? In life, we're often told to stand up for ourselves, to speak, to assert our boundaries. And yes, that's fundamentally true, but there's a nuance we often miss. Not every insult deserves a reaction. Not every attack needs a counterattack. When you are disrespected, especially deliberately, your silence can become a roar. Why? Because silence isn't weakness, it's strength under control. It's what happens when you recognize your power but choose not to waste it. When someone disrespects you, the natural impulse is to respond, to defend yourself, to prove a point, to restore your pride. But in many situations, choosing silence instead is not a sign of weakness. In fact, it's one of the strongest responses you can give. Silence, when used intentionally, is power held in reserve. It shows that you're not controlled by emotion, and that your self-worth isn't dependent on someone else's recognition or approval. In a world where people are quick to react, quick to argue, and quick to escalate, the one who remains quiet stands out. They demonstrate a level of composure that reflects depth, patience, and self-awareness. It means you're not easily shaken. It means you understand the value of your words and don't waste them on situations that don't deserve them. Power isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's the ability to walk away, to observe rather than react, to protect your peace rather than engage in battles that lead nowhere. When you stay silent in the face of disrespect, you're essentially saying, I know who I am, and I don't need to prove it to you. This doesn't mean tolerating abuse or never standing up for yourself. It means learning to discern when a response is necessary and when silence is actually the stronger choice. It means you've moved beyond impulsive reaction into intentional response. And that's where true confidence lives, not in the noise, but in the calm center of your own self-respect. Staying quiet, especially when provoked, reflects a powerful form of emotional intelligence, the kind that doesn't seek external validation to feel secure. It is a silent declaration of strength. Not every attack requires your attention. Not every insult deserves a reply. Often, when someone disrespects you, there's a trap hidden beneath their words. A trap designed to pull you into a conflict that benefits no one, least of all you. The moment you react emotionally to every slight, you hand over your power. You allow the other person to dictate your behavior, your mood, your energy, and that's a dangerous habit. Some people thrive on provoking others. They're not looking for truth, resolution, or growth. They're looking for a reaction, and the more reactive you are, the more control they gain. They throw their negativity at you not because you deserve it, but because they need to feel powerful. And if you respond in anger or frustration, you've given them exactly what they wanted. Responding to every attack means constantly living in defense mode, always on edge, always ready to fight. But true strength lies in discernment, in knowing which battles are worth fighting and which are better left untouched. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. Sometimes the most powerful move is to do nothing at all. By refusing to engage, you protect your time, your peace, and your energy. You signal that you operate on a different frequency, one that isn't swayed by petty jabs or cheap shots. You're not avoiding conflict because you're afraid. You're rising above it because you've outgrown it. There is wisdom in restraint. There is clarity in silence. When you choose not to respond to every attack, you preserve your focus for the things that actually matter. And in doing so, you rise above the noise, not by fighting it, but by refusing to become part of it. When someone disrespects you, it often has little to do with you and everything to do with them. Disrespect is frequently a reflection of a person's inner turmoil, their frustrations, insecurities, and unresolved issues. People project what they carry inside. If someone is bitter, angry, or unhappy, that energy will spill into how they treat others. So when someone lashes out at you or tries to belittle you, it's usually because they're battling something within themselves that they haven't faced. Understanding this changes how you see those moments. Instead of taking things personally, you begin to see through the behavior. You realize that the disrespect isn't necessarily about your worth or your actions. It's about their perception, their pain, and their inability to process their emotions in a healthy way. You just happen to be in their line of fire. Responding with anger or defensiveness often makes the situation worse because it validates their emotional chaos. But when you recognize that their behavior stems from something deeper, you gain clarity and control. You don't feed their negativity. You don't let their inner war become your battlefield. This perspective doesn't excuse bad behavior. It simply frees you from internalizing it. You stop absorbing other people's dysfunction as your own burden. Instead, you stay grounded in your own stability, your own truth. By understanding that disrespect often comes from a place of pain, you move from reaction to observation. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself to people who are just trying to cope with their own inadequacies. And in that shift, you reclaim your peace. You choose not to respond from emotion, but from wisdom. That's not weakness. It's the strength of someone who knows themselves deeply and refuses to be pulled into someone else's storm. Your reaction is your responsibility, no one else's. You don't get to control how others speak to you, how they behave, or whether they show you the respect you deserve. But you do get to control one crucial thing: how you choose to respond. That choice, though simple on the surface, holds immense power. It determines whether you give someone control over your emotions or retain that control for yourself. When someone disrespects you, your first instinct might be to fire back, to defend yourself, to match their tone, to prove a point. But in doing so, you allow their actions to dictate your behavior. You hand over your emotional state like it's not yours to protect. And in that moment, you're no longer in charge. They are. Taking responsibility for your reaction means stepping back and asking, is this response aligned with who I am, or is it simply a reflection of their chaos? That awareness is what separates emotionally reactive people from emotionally grounded ones. It's not about suppressing your feelings. It's about recognizing them, holding them, and then choosing to respond in a way that reflects your strength, not your anger. When you own your response, you'd free yourself from emotional dependence on others. You don't rise and fall based on how someone treats you. Instead, you act from a place of clarity and intention. That's what self-respect looks like. Not reacting to every spark, but choosing when to speak, when to stay silent, and when to walk away. There's immense power in responding on your terms, not theirs. Because in the end, it's not what they do that defines you. It's what you do with it. Your reaction is your legacy. Make sure it reflects the person you truly are. There's something profoundly powerful about dignity, especially when it's maintained in the face of disrespect. When you choose to stay composed rather than react, you send a message louder than any words could ever express. You show the world and the person confronting you that you're grounded, unshaken, and unbothered by the noise around you. This quiet strength doesn't demand attention, but it naturally commands respect. Most people believe they need to speak up, argue back, or prove a point to defend their worth. But when you carry yourself with dignity, you don't need to prove anything. Your presence does the talking. Your silence, deliberate and calm, becomes a mirror that reflects the immaturity or aggression of the other person. It exposes their behavior without you having to lower yourself or even speak a word. Dignity isn't about being passive. It's about being in control. It's knowing that your value isn't determined by someone else's attitude or approval. When you stay composed, you rise above the drama, the pettiness, and the need to engage in meaningless conflict. And that's what truly sets you apart, the ability to walk away without losing your peace. Words can be twisted, arguments can spiral, but the quiet presence of someone who knows their worth is undeniable. It lingers, it teaches, it sets a standard. You don't have to match someone's disrespect with equal intensity. In fact, when you meet it with calm, collected stillness, you highlight the gap between emotional chaos and self-mastery. And in that gap, you hold the upper hand, not by overpowering them, but by standing tall in who you are. Let your dignity do the speaking. Let your silence be the boundary. That's where real strength lives, not in the noise, but in the stillness behind it. There's a common misunderstanding that strength is loud, that it's about reacting quickly, speaking boldly, and always standing your ground in the moment. But real strength often shows up in a much quieter, more disciplined form: restraint. The ability to hold back when every part of you wants to react is not weakness. It's power under control. It's a sign that you're not a prisoner of your emotions. When someone disrespects you, the easy response is to retaliate, to raise your voice, to match their energy, to hit back. But that's often what they're hoping for, to pull you into a conflict that validates their behavior. The harder choice, the stronger choice, is to pause, to breathe, to recognize that just because you can react doesn't mean you should. Restraint is what allows you to act not out of impulse, but out of intention. It's not about suppressing how you feel. It's about deciding what serves you and what doesn't. There's a kind of quiet confidence in knowing you could destroy someone with your words, but choosing not to. That choice reveals self-respect, maturity, and clarity of purpose. People often mistake silence for surrender, but true silence in moments of tension is a strategy. It's observation, it's patience, and above all, it's a refusal to let someone else take control of your state of mind. You don't need to prove your power by exploding. You prove it by not needing to, by staying grounded, measured, and unshaken. That is the kind of strength that builds character, earns respect, and ultimately allows you to walk away from situations with your integrity intact. Restraint isn't what holds you back. It's what keeps you in control. And that, in the end, is real power.